Inshallah, in this brief talk before the khutbah, I will share with you some reflections and some lessons from the 61st ayah of Surah Al-Baqarah. And as I continue to talk about this ayah, I think anybody who thinks about this ayah deeply will understand why it's important for us to review ayat like these at a time like this. Allah Azza wa Jal is placing this ayah in a certain context. Banu Israel have escaped Fir'aun. They got away from Fir'aun. And for many, many generations, they were living under the rule of Fir'aun. So for a long time, they've lived as an occupied people with a dominant force that rules over them and treats them like slaves and keeps them like an underclass, right? Now the thing is, there's a strange relationship between the oppressor and the oppressed. In the history of the world, you have nations that get dominated by other nations. That has happened throughout history. The Japanese did that to the Chinese, for example. The British did that to many parts of the world. The Dutch did it in Indonesia, etc., etc. And when these invaders, colonizers, rulers, whenever they come somewhere, after they win, the general public, not the people who were fighting them, but the general public, the millions and millions of people that were living, their life at first doesn't seem like it changed that much. So if somebody was a farmer before the Romans took over, somebody's a farmer after the Romans took over. The taxes go in a different direction, but their life really didn't change all that much, other than the war. The same way when especially particularly the Roman Empire, the Mongols, other warring nations that expanded their territory all over the world, one of the ways they did that is they didn't change too much of what was going on. You keep your system, you keep doing the farming the way you do, you keep the market the way you do, just the money needs to come this way now. That's all, right? So for the general public, at the economic level, at least, didn't seem like there was too much of a difference. But it was also important for the people that took over to let the public know there's a new boss in town. Not just that the money should quietly flow somewhere else, but there has to be an assertion of dominance. The public has to recognize that they live under the power of a mighty empire, of a mighty ruler, etc., right? And the way they do that is not just by showing them military force. That's too expensive. The military is used on the battlefield. The military is used in espionage and collecting intelligence. But the military, when you try to use the military to control the population is too big. And that's not the job of the military. So they have to use other weapons. And I'm going to call them weapons. The Americans most recently called it the Hearts and Minds campaign. That's what they called it. So you don't need guns and bombs. What you need is entertainment. What you need is sports. What you need is culture, concerts. What you need, and the Romans did this, all these empires did this. They'll put on these big shows. You'll have a national celebration day, etc. You have to make the people feel like their loyalty to the empire is part of being a citizen. And these people won because they deserve to win. It's a good thing they won. If they didn't win, we would never have advanced as an empire. So you start, even though they don't see you as one of them, they want you to see them as family. They'll never look at you as family, but they want you to see them as family. And so they will do this by, the flags and the parades and shows and songs and, propaganda machinery, basically. They'll create that. And they created that even in the time of Fir'aun. In fact, if you study the history of the pharaohs, this is important because the Qur'an brings up Fir'aun quite a bit, right? Fir'aun, if you know anything about the ancient Egyptian empire, they built a lot of very strange but very daunting, powerful monuments like the Sphinx and the pyramids and the obelisks and all these strange architectural structures that even now people go on tourist sites and they visit these places. And a lot of these places were built so if there were people traveling by sea and they would pass by or river, they could see on the banks of the river, oh, these people you don't want to mess with these people, look at what they built. It was a means of intimidation, right? And this is actually, In the Qur'an, Allah Azza wa Jalla describes even previous nations like the nation of Hud alayhi salam. They used to do this too, to carve idols and carve massive monuments for no other purpose but to create an image, an impression, right? And so it's a symbol of something. You know, when the United States, the rebels in the United States were fighting the British Empire, the French wanted to, because the French hate the British, so just to stick it to the English some more, they sent them the, you know, Lady Liberty, a symbol of the union between France and America. And what does Lady Liberty represent? Freedom. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of to be human as you wish to be, except in France that celebrates that freedom. You can't wear a hijab and get a job. You can't have a name Muhammad and get, you know, put your resume in, you're not going to get a call back. The same guy, you know, Algerian guy, light-haired, light-skinned, his name is Abdul Karim, he applies for a job, can't get it, changes his name, you know, Jacques, François, and he sends it in and he gets a call right away. Freedom. But it's just a symbol. It's supposed to show people this is what we represent. This is what we celebrate, right? So it's done by means of a flag and all these other things. Now what happens to most of the public? Most of the public, what these empires did is they controlled the way these people think about the world. They wanted your worldview, if you lived in that time, they wanted your worldview to be shaped by them. They want you to see the world the way they want you to see it. And that was one of their most powerful weapons. The Israelites were slaves to the empire. They were slaves to Egypt. And Musa alayhi salam helped them break away from that slavery, and now they were free. They were in Sinai, they were in the desert. The military has drowned. The Egyptian army is gone. Now they're free. But they're not free. Because the real occupation was not the military occupation. The real occupation was the psychological occupation. They escaped physically, but they didn't escape mentally. They didn't escape mentally. So now they're free. Now I want to give you an analogy. If somebody was in jail, falsely accused, they got thrown in jail. And after 20 years of being in jail, they got out. When they got out, now they can see the sun again, they can eat normal food again, they can make friends again, right? Will they ever want to wear the jail uniform? Oh, I'm in the mood, I miss those clothes. Are you going to do that? Are you going to say, man, the way they made that mush that they used to give us for lunch, I miss that mush, man. I don't want to eat chicken. I don't want to eat beef. I don't want to have a barbecue. I want that old pot, that dirty pot, and I want to sit in a dark place where there's rats running around because I miss that, man. That was the life. Nobody would do that. Nobody will do that. In fact, even if they saw a rat or they saw a pot that looked like the pot from the time of jail, they might get triggered. That memory might come back and they might start remembering, and they might even start crying that they remember that. The next time you see a police officer, they might have a panic inside their heart. I've lived through this. You know? They can't even drive by the old place where they used to be in prison. It reminds them of a terrible episode in their life they would rather forget. That is someone who got free and now wants to taste freedom. They want to taste freedom. Musa alayhi salam comes with them to the desert. It's a desert. It's not a garden. You don't have a lot of food options. You don't have a lot of weather, shade options. So Allah provided the shade, as you might know. ظَلَّلْنَا عَلَيْهِمُ الْغَمَامِ. Right? And then وَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَنَّ وَالسَّلْوَى. Right? So Allah sent them manna and salwa. So the food is taken care of. So what you need to survive, water, which is the 12 springs, فَانْفَجَرَتْ مِنْهُ اثْنَتَا عَشْرَةَ عَيْنًا. The 12 springs have been given. Proteins have been given. You know, salwa is coming, the bird is coming. You can kill the bird, you can get the flesh of that bird. Your protein intake, your fat intake is covered. As-salwa is the wheat that they're going to grow. So their protein, their carbs are covered, taken care of. It's a full nutritional plan. They can survive perfectly well and be hydrated, now with freedom. And these people that were free physically were still enslaved mentally. And they come to Musa alayhi salam in ayah number 61, and they say, وَإِذْ قُلْتُمْ, Allah says, and you people said to Musa, at the time when you said, لَن نَصْبِرَ عَلَى طَعَامٍ وَاحِدٍ. We can't just keep eating one kind of food. We don't have the patience to keep eating the same food over and over again. What's for lunch? Manna and salwa. What's for dinner? Salwa and manna. Same thing over and over again. I can't do this anymore. Come on. Let's have some variety. So they turned to Musa alayhi salam, and in this part of this complaint, they said, فَادْعُ لَنَا رَبَّكَ يُخْرِجْ لَنَا مِمَّا تُنْبِتُ الْأَرْضُ مِنْ بَقْلِهَا وَقِثَّائِهَا وَفُومِهَا وَعَدَسِهَا وَبَصَلِهَا. Said, why don't you go make dua to your Rabb? He should bring out some other variety of vegetables for us. Lentils, or to speak of dal, pyaz, some tarkari should be there, some masala should be. This is bland food. Can't keep eating this stuff. Can we place a better order with Allah? That's what they're asking. Now, why is this significant? Why did Allah mention all these names of these vegetables? Interestingly, these were popular vegetables in Egypt. And they saw their masters eating this food all the time. And they probably got some leftovers themselves. So I was giving you the analogy, they miss prison food. Right? Now you got free, but your brain is still in the jail cell, and you're asking for the food you used to enjoy in the jail cell, and you're telling your prophet, yeah, this freedom is nice, but can we go back to jail food? Can we have that again? And Musa alayhi salam did something remarkable here. By the way, it's not just the food. It's not just the food. We used to live under one of the greatest, mightiest empires on earth. Every other nation in the world was scared of Fir'aun. We had Fir'auni citizenship. We had an Egyptian passport. We had the green card. We had it all. And we gave all of that up, and now we're in the desert eating this bird and this bread. This is freedom? This is what you brought us to? We went from the #1 nation in the world, and you want us to live like this? You see, they were not the #1 nation in the world. They were slaves of the #1 nation in the world. But in their head, we're #1, baby. Because the slave owner wants to make you think that you're part of the empire, even though you're just the insect that they step on. You're just the insect that they step on. That's all you are. You'll have people that are, in American politics, for example, there are people that are crazy about Donald Trump. They're crazy about him. Christians that are more interested in Trump than Jesus. I've seen it. And these people can barely pay their electricity bill. They're barely getting by. But if Trump comes around, yeah, we love you. And he goes, I love you guys too. He doesn't love any of you. But he's very successful in making you believe that you need to love him. He's very successful. This is Fir'aun tactic. It's already there. So they were enslaved. They come out and they want the same old thing. They want what the colonizer, what the owner, what the former master gave them. And Musa alayhi salam said, "Ihbitu Misran." Now the word Misran is really, it's something. Misran in the Arabic language is countryside. You could say baladan, arban, right? You could say wadiyan, you could say any word and this would work. But Allah chose the word Misran. With a tanween on it, Misran, you can hear the noon at the end, Misran. But the word for Egypt in Arabic is Misra. Misra, without the tanween. It's mamnu' min as-sarf. So those two words are very close to each other, but they don't mean the same thing. If you say Misra or Misru, it's Egypt. If you say Misrun or Misran, it's countryside. But the word is very close. It's as if Musa alayhi salam is saying, you want to go back down into another Egypt. You want to go to a new place, but actually you want Egypt all over again. Let me tell you something interesting about where I come from. I'm originally from Pakistan. I love Pakistan. I love that entire region, actually. I love the history of that region. A book for especially the university students that are sitting here and high school students that are sitting here, the boys and the girls. I really want you to read this book, especially if you come from South Asia. If you come from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, even Sri Lanka, other parts of that region. I want you to read this book. It's called Islam and the English Enlightenment. Islam and the English Enlightenment. I really want you to read it for yourself. But I want you to let's step away from that for a moment. The British colonized India. They ruled over the Hindus, the Sikhs, the Muslims for some time. The Indians tried to fight back. The Muslims particularly tried to fight back. Didn't work for a long time. They were supposed to be the enemy, and you should hate everything about your enemy. But the enemy was very successful as teaching you that if you speak my language, you will be successful. If you dress like me, you will be more successful. If you eat like me, you will be more successful. If you talk like me, if you act like me, if you look like me, if you pretend that you are me, even though you're brown, if you pretend that you're white, you're gonna get really successful. Because the British are a very small nation, if you didn't know. I've been to England many times, and you can drive across the country in a few hours. And every time I drive, most of it is farmland. One town, farmland, one town, farmland, and I look at it and I say, Ya Allah, these people and the entire planet, how in the world did that happen? And if you study English history, they were ready to kill each other. Their kings were ready to kill each other. And they go from there at a time when their entire military wasn't even 60, 70,000. If you want to exaggerate it, 200,000, their entire military. And the Mughal military was in the millions. Between 2 and 6 million, it fluctuated. How? How did this happen? It didn't happen militarily. Something else was going on. And we need to understand how domination works. Yes, it works by military means, but there are other mechanisms, other weapons that are used. And in those weapons, even when people break free from the British, even when people fight in Algeria, they fight and kill. They get killed to get the French out of their land. They can get the French out, but there's a French that stays inside. They can get the British out, but there's a British that stays inside. And when it resides inside, now you can go to a country like Pakistan, which I love. And Pakistan has a remarkable heritage of many, many languages. Many of those languages are dying, right? And if you go to a restaurant and you speak in Urdu, then the waiter might look at you like. But if you say the same exact thing in English, on top of that, if you say it in an American accent, please sir, this way sir. You could conduct the experiment. I could walk into the same restaurant with a suit on, speak in English, I could go back out, change it to Shalwar Kameez, and then come back in and speak in Urdu. Completely different treatment. And this is not in America. The mistreatment is not in America. It's not happening in Canada. It's not happening in England. This is happening in the Muslim world. And it's not just Pakistan. It's happening in India, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Malaysia. It's happening in North Africa, all over the Muslim world. You know what it is? We freed ourselves. We did. But did we? Did we free ourselves? It's as if we wanted another Misr. We wanted another Misr. And the new one, for the new generation now, they're like, I was born in Canada. What are you talking about? I can't relate to any of this. Yeah. We talk to you for a second. You know who your colonizer is? Brand names. Your TV, your loyalty to your entertainment accounts. Your worship of your sports teams. This is how your new master keeps you busy. It keeps you busy with the new car that came out, the new phone release that came out that has a camera which is exactly the same as the last camera. But for you, your life is incomplete if you don't have the newest one. You have to have it. You have to show it. You will be proud of democracy, living in a democracy that is so busy destroying democracies all over the world. But you're so proud of democracy. And at least we have rights, at least we have this, and then that facade will start breaking. So what I'm trying to tell you by means of this ayah is that Musa alayhi salam gave them a warning. If this is what you want, You want to live as slaves again? If not physically, then mentally, go ahead. Go into another Egypt. This time, it's not a Fir'aun that has to rule you. Fir'aun is already in your head and you are colonizing yourselves on autopilot. I mean, the best kind of slave is a slave you don't even have to build a prison. Save money. The slave who's a slave while he thinks he's free. The owner doesn't even have to spend any money. This is the easiest way. This is great. You know, there used to be a time before the banking systems that developed and the taxation systems that developed that the kings used to send the forces and the forces used to come and collect the money from every house, and they got smarter. They're like, this is too much. I've got to pay the soldier. I got to pay the horse. I got to pay the cart. I got to pay the travel expense. Then they got to collect the money. I lose a lot of money this way. Let's make an automated billing system so when people are riding down the highway, the toll will rob them and they won't even know, and they'll feel like they're free. The road is so nice. The view is so nice. They'll be smiling while being robbed. They'll be smiling while they'll pay taxes on their income, then they'll pay taxes when they buy a bottle of milk. Then they'll pay taxes when they're recycling that bottle of milk. Then they'll pay taxes when they buy the car and park the car and emissions from the car. We'll just keep taking their money back and they'll be smiling. You're like, this is so great. This is a much better slavery system than even Fir'aun. Fir'aun would have been proud. Fir'aun would have said, this is a real upgrade. اهبطوا مصرا فإن لكم ما سألتم. And if you allow this, if you don't break free from at least mentally being owned, if you don't free yourself, what is the big, and I don't want to prolong this discussion, I have 4 minutes, I'll just give you one thing. Allah says, what punishment, what is the consequence of this? It's easy. There's a law in the Qur'an. There's multiple laws in the Qur'an. You guys understand the law of gravity, right? You understand laws of physics, you understand laws of combustion, you understand laws of chemistry, right? You understand laws of physiology. If you're going to eat certain things that are poisonous to the human body, your body will be affected. There are laws that govern that. There are rules in place. Allah put rules in place. You can't stick your hand into a fire. There are rules of combustion, right? There's going to be a cause and there's going to be an effect. Just like that, in the Quran, Allah gives us another kind of cause and effect that if Allah did not teach us, we would never know. Physics you can learn. Combustion you can learn. Anatomy you can learn. But there are other laws, just like those laws, with a cause and effect, that you cannot learn unless Allah teaches. وَيُعَلِّمُكُمْ مَا لَمْ تَكُونُوا تَعْلَمُونَ. He teaches you what you couldn't know yourself. Allah says, وَضُرِبَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ الذِّلَّةِ. الذِّلَّة was slapped on them, was struck on them. So I want you to understand this word, dhillah today. That's all. There's more, but if you understand dhillah, kafa. بالنسبة لكفى. So Allah says these people that wanted to be mentally colonized, they were struck with dhillah. So what in the world is dhillah? It comes from the Arabic word mudallal, tariqun mudallal. When a road, people step on it a lot and it becomes smooth. Like if you live in some place where there's not a lot of pavements and things like that, there's grass and weeds and things, and people walk and walk and walk, and between the weeds there's a path that becomes smooth. And there's nothing growing on it because people step on it so much, right? That would be tariqun mudallal, sahl yani. So it becomes stepped on so much it becomes smooth. Ha'itun dhalil. They use it for a wall. Somebody built a wall to keep their neighbor out. But if they made the wall 1 foot tall, so the guy could just hop over, this is useless, it's too short. That kind of a wall is called ha'it dhalil. It's too low. The same way baytun dhalil. They say for a house, when you're buying real estate, you want to buy real estate on top of a hill or a little bit elevation, because if it rains, the water will come down. But if you bought your house at the bottom, everybody else's problem is not there. It becomes your problem. Your house is the one that gets flooded. That's baytun dhalil in Arabic. They use this for Dhull al-Karam, for a necklace. In the necklace, they have these, cheap beads, but they have the pearl, or they have some expensive one that dangles at the bottom. So dulliyat ala qiduhu, the expensive ones dangle at the bottom. They're actually called dhulal, the ones that dangle at the bottom. So all these examples, And what are they, in a great lexicon of the Arabic language by Muhammad Hassan Jabal, he says, نقص ارتفاع الشيء. When someone used to be high and it became low, that is dhaleel. Someone used to be strong, they became weak, that's dhaleel. And in the social sense, someone used to have self-respect, and now they enjoy people stepping on them and keeping them low. That's dhaleel. So what happened to Muslim cultures? Where if you pretend, there are cultures today, and I know I've visited them, I've had those conversations, Muslim cultures where if a woman is wearing hijab, she's considered a villager, uneducated, and backwards. And the moment they act more, they want to act more American and more Western than Westerners. They don't even act that Western. Why? Because we want to feel like we're modern. We want to feel like we're modern. What's the biggest, you'll notice war-torn countries where entire, cities have been decimated. People have been destroyed. And those same people, their sense of value comes from, hey, I just bought, look at the brand of my belt. Look at these shoes. Look at this coat I got. This is where your value is coming from. The master says, buy from me, pay me taxes, and be proud of it too. How more dhaleel can one get? How more low can one get? This is not about halal and haram. I want you to understand that. This is not about tahreem. This is about self-respect. This is about self-respect. And I'll conclude with this, every culture on earth is an extension of what was given to Adam alayhi salam. أنزلنا عليكم لباسا يواري سوآتكم وريشا. Adam alayhi salam was told, Allah has revealed clothing to you so it covers your privates. So whether you're dressed in Bangladeshi clothes, Pakistani clothes, Afghani clothes, American clothes, Canadian clothes, British clothes, Japanese clothes, all of them were actually started by what was given to Adam alayhi salam. And Allah gave us guidelines in His book and the sunnah of His messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam to remove ignorance from the clothes, and you can wear decent clothes while being Japanese. You can wear decent clothes while being American. You can wear decent clothes while being Chinese or any other nation. It's not the cultures that were being rejected. It was the colonization that was being rejected. It was the ruler mindset, the worship of the ruler that was being rejected. And subhanAllah, we are living in amazing, amazing times. At this time, for us to contemplate ayat like these, especially for the young generation, they have an opportunity to break the colonization that has dominated the Muslim mind for well over a century. Muslims are a very powerful force on earth. We've been sleeping for a couple of 100 years. We've had a bad season. We've just had a bad season. But that doesn't mean we're weak. We're the sleeping giant. That's what we are. But we're starting to wake up. We're starting to wake up, What's happening in Gaza isn't just opening up the eyes of the world to what's happening. What's the political reality? It's not just teaching Americans. We keep saying freedom of speech, but we don't really have it. We keep saying freedom of expression, but we don't really have it. We keep saying freedom of protest, but we don't really have it. It's not just teaching the Americans that very, very important lesson. Oh my God, they didn't think of us like slaves. They just put invisible fences. They're not just, but the Muslims are learning. What have I been worshiping? What cow did I just make and worship? Like the Israelites and their golden calf, right? It doesn't have to be a golden calf anymore. It could be a golden logo of anything. It could be a golden Nike. It could be a golden Ferrari, golden Chanel, all golden cows. Those are all the cows today, and all the Saudis of the world are building it. So I pray this is the beginning of something. This is the beginning of a new awakening where we're not culturally dominated anymore. We can express ourselves and think for ourselves, and we're not loyal to anything but the truth. And we can invite the world to see the truth instead of seeing the truth through the lens of someone who just wants control and manipulation. May Allah Azza wa Jal liberate our hearts and minds, and may Allah Azza wa Jal allow especially this generation to be the one that truly liberates the ummah from the colonization that is inside. not just the one that is outside. بارك الله لي ولكم في القرآن الحكيم ونفعني وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم.